Hello, it's Henry again here, and I never thought I'd be making this video. We out here in the eastern part of Canada, the opportunities to boondock with motorhomes is pretty much zero. I mean, I'm not going to count Walmart and so on, but to pull off into government-owned land and just go camping for free, effectively, as is very common in the West, is very restricted here. And so as a consequence, I didn't see the need for a solar project because I didn't see us running off the grid very much and that we would ever really need this. Primarily, we camp with our RV. We still work, of course, and so we're using this as a vacation, like a cottage, effectively. And we're either visiting people and staying in driveways if we're permitted to do so, or we are camping at typically Ontario parks, the provincial park system in Ontario, which is actually pretty good. We're not all that interested in commercial campgrounds. The sites are too close together. They're noisier. We much prefer the natural setting of a park with the forest and the trails and so on. And in those parks, we have powered sites, which in Ontario, depending on the park you choose, in Canadian dollars, is something around, the best parks will be $52 to $53 a night, including taxes. And the next tier down, less common used parks will be $48. These are 2019 prices. And then the C parks, generally found in Northern Ontario, might be $42. Now, this is with power. In addition, if you want, you can save $6 a night by taking a site that doesn't have power. They'll say also there's a cheaper rate if the park doesn't have showers, but most parks do, so that's not all that common. However, the challenge is that 52 adds up after a while, which is one thing. Also, these sites in the summer tend to be pretty full. These are very popular, understandably. And the challenge with it is that if you want to have a view at your window that doesn't have someone else's RV in it, if you want a bit more quiet in your campsites and so on, you seek perhaps more privacy. And this is the kind of privacy that you would covet as a boondocker, which again is not really possible in Ontario. So anyhow, what we've thought about was to try to, recognizing that the non-powered campsites are far less commonly used, mainly car campers, tent campers, and so on, but there are some sites that are quite significant, would be to consider using those sites if we had a way to recharge our batteries. Now, I'll do another video on my boondocking strategies, but for us, by far, the power is the problem. We have parasitic load on the RV. It's about 24 amp hours a day. Sorry, 2 amps. Sorry, so 48 amp hours a day. So within 2 days of doing absolutely nothing, our batteries are flat. So I had to have a way to charge my batteries up in one day during the daytime that would cover typical loads. I also realized that in Ontario we have lots of trees. There'd be shade at times, even in sites that are for the most part open. And also there would be clouds. So I made a guess with this first plan. That was that I would put 400 watts of solar on the roof. And that would give us a chance, if we assume 25% rates when we're cloudy in the summertime, that we would be able to, that would still be an 8 amp feed, roughly speaking. And over 6 or 7 or 8 hours, you'd get 60, 70 or so amp hours back in the battery, plus or minus, which would give us most of what we had spent the day before. We might have to conserve a little bit if it's cloudy for a couple of days, but the idea of nothing else is this would extend the use of our RV in a boondocking situation. So, again, because there's little minimal cost savings. Like, for example, if you could go off the grid and go camping that way in an acceptable location, now you're looking at, saving $50 a night. Well, it doesn't take long to justify a solar system that way, but we're not sure, but we don't see that happening just yet. So what I decided to do was to look at it this way. We're going to leave the batteries the way they are. So we're not going to spend any money putting lithium in or whatever. So we've got two 6-volt deep cycle batteries that seem to be working pretty well. So that's going to stay the way it is. And we wanted a budget of around $1,000 Canadian for the project. Now, it's a little more than that, but it's not. That's mainly because of an addition we made. The second thing we decided was that for breakfast, we often use a toaster. And for dinner, we often use the George Foreman grill. In either case, the George Foreman grill is a small version. It's only 760 watts. It may not even draw that much. And it's only going to be used for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 minutes to cook a steak or something like that. And in the morning, if you have toast, how long is the toaster really on to toast 2 slices of bread? Or maybe 4 if you have 2 of them. So I calculated that we might only lose less than 10 amp hours for running these things, and that the current draw wouldn't be excessive, we hope. And so I bought a new inverter that has a 1,000 watt rating on it, pure sine wave, with the idea that this would now allow us to use these high current appliances for a short period of time that we use quite a bit in the RV. So that means the only limitation we would have with this system would be that we would not be using our air conditioning, and we would not be using our microwave oven. And in all fairness, that's not a bad trade. Now, it is a bit of a challenge if you have frozen steaks and so on, but we might be able to find other ways to melt those or take them out ahead of time. Just be a little bit more plan ahead a little bit with that. And so this is a plan, and I mean, I've been absolutely captivated by the solar technology that I see other people doing on the YouTube videos. And so I really wanted to play with it, but I had to justify it somehow to make it, at least reasonable for our circumstances. Also, the way I'm doing this is I'll be able to take it all off. So if we buy a new RV when we're done, when we retire, so we'll be using it more, and this one, as much as we like it, is getting a little tired, I can remove the most of this stuff and make it a little bit better for our, so we could reuse it or whatever is appropriate. And so again, it's just simply a battery charging system with the objective to be able to charge the batteries in 1 day or less, and when we have some sun, of course. And to enhance the inverter from a 600 watt, which we really liked, the inverter was working great, to this 1,000 watt inverter, which was also now has a remote switch on it, so we can put the inverter in another location, and the switch will turn it on and turn it off. So I'm very keen about this, and we're getting the parts next little while, and then the question will be, if the weather in the fall is reasonable, whether I can, actually install it. And so the rest of this video, I'm going to show you the parts and my plan of how to put this together. I'm not at the RV, but in effect what is going to happen is that there'll be the 4 panels, 2 near the front of the RV, 2 near the chimney of the flue of the refrigerator, which is where I'm going to bring the cord down. I'm going to make all 4 panels in parallel, and this will hopefully limit the effect of shading to as small as possible. I'm using one kit that's being paralleled right at the flue, and the other one has to have a 10-foot extension, a 10 AWG cable to do that. And then I'm going to connect them all together, and I'll use an 8-gauge cable that goes down the flue through the bottom of the fridge mount, over top of the furnace, and along behind the cupboards to the solar controller. And what I'm building is a box, a panel, right as the entranceway. My batteries are underneath the step. So when you come in the entranceway, there's a wall there, and there's a bit of space. I'm going to build a display case that will have my disconnect switches, my 2 fuses, or relays, or not relays, breakers, and the charge controller, all in that one area. And this is good for short runs, and it's also good for visibility and so on. It'll be a little tricky when you're in the RV to look at it, but I have another plan with that, because I'm also including in this the the BT1 Bluetooth module, so I can examine at any time within range of the Bluetooth my solar system on my cell phone. So that will certainly take away all the problems, and it will also allow me to monitor it while I'm driving down the road. So I'm very keen about all of this. This is going to be good stuff. I sure hope anyway. So the construction phase will be basically first to build the case, and as the pieces arrive, I want to mount the 2 breakers and the 2 switches in logical pattern and the Bluetooth module, and have all that screwed down and nailed down and ready to go in advance. And then that's one project there. The other project, of course, would be to mount the inverter and to run the cables for the inverter to the batteries. Now I have to see how heavy the cables were on the 600 watt inverter, whether I have to upgrade them. I suspect I will. We'll be looking at almost 80 amps, so I'm thinking of 2 gauge cable and 6 foot runs, so we'll see how that goes. From the charge controller to the battery, are probably going to run 6 gauge. We'll see what we have here, but we're not going to be going much over 30 amps. I don't really see how we need to do much more than that. And so anyhow, there'll be the inverter project, which is probably the best part of a day. The biggest challenge is those compartments are small-ish, and to get it in there and screw it down in a way that, it can be reliable and so on. And that's because the RV does vibrate and shake as you go, and you sure don't want that to happen. And for it to come loose, and so on. But it'll keep the inverter out of the cabin, which is kind of nice. And then we'll have the on-off switch. This will be directly connected to the battery, not through the circuit boards or anything like that. So hopefully we'll get the best feed we can there, because the voltage drop for an inverter is a concern, especially when you're running high current. So let's say we have a best part of a day to get that going, certainly a few hours anyway, because I think it's going to be tricky. And then the next one will be to mount when we actually put in the solar system. I'm going to mount the case on the wall, and this will, I'll have to cut a hole in the paneling and all the rest of it so that the cords can get in, but that'll be hidden by the case, and then the cords to the battery will go through the floor, and you won't be able to see any of that. So that's going to be pretty effective, I think. And then I have the 2 disconnect switches, so which I'd only use if I'm going to be working on the batteries or working on the solar system. I think when I leave the RV, I will probably turn the solar system off. I might leave the battery connected, but that could also be a parasitic drain too, so I might have to turn both off, so I'll be into the panel for that. So anyhow, get that wired, get the solar controller wired to the battery, and then up on the roof, mount the panels. We got the Z brackets from Renogy. They're 4 100 watt panels. Lots of die-core, and screw them down. The roof is got a fiberglass shell with a 1/4 inch of Luan, and then some fiberglass, which won't hold any, or styrofoam, which will hold anything. The roof has metal framing to it, steel framing, so I just have to look a little bit, try and figure out if these go straight across or they arch across, because I don't want to hit one of those with the mounting bolts, but we'll have to see just how that's put together. And then when that's done, then I'm going to parallel the front pair right away, and then from that I will connect to the extension cord across the roof down to the storage, and then we'll parallel the second set and parallel that to the first set. So we have 3 parallel connectors to do that, and then the 8 gauge wire that goes down the flue I checked the fluid. There's a nice clean passage. The heat part on the refrigerator is on the right side, so I'll be going down the left. And like I said, and then through the floor, we'll just secure it in a couple of places. Shouldn't be too bad, I hope. The extension cord is 20 feet long, so I'm hoping that I can not, get too short on that, but I think I've got about 2 to 3 feet extra, so that should be enough. I sure hope anyway. So we'll see. And then it goes right through, and we'll just tack it on a few places just to keep it out of the way. And then and we're there. And then just connect up the charge controller, and we'll secure the wires on the roof, and hopefully that's all there is to it. So we'll see. I'm very keen to give this a ride. Find the whole technology fascinating, and the opportunity for us to be able to camp in a lot of places where we wouldn't consider before. And electricity for this RV was by far the biggest constraint, and I'm sure when it was built, no one ever thought about going off the grid. So the rest of this video, I'm just going to narrate the pictures and show you the parts I'm going to use, and then later on I'll do a construction video and show you how this all comes together. So anyhow, thank you for watching my videos. If you enjoy my channel and things I do, please consider subscribing to my channel and give it a like, and we'll see you down the road. So here's the 100-watt Henri solar panel. This is monocrystalline, so they're a little more efficient. And there'll be 2 near the front of the RV and 2 about midships. They're going to be held on with these Z brackets that you see here that Henri also made, and it comes with all the hardware, so that's kind of nice. And so I'll be using all of the bolts and die-core around everything to keep it all as secure so we don't have any leaks, and certainly hope that that all works the way it's supposed to. And then I'm going to connect the front panels to the center system with these MC4 connectors and the 10-foot cable, so that that run gets down near where the flue to the RV refrigerator is. Now I'm going to run this whole system in parallel, and so that will be require these connectors here. These will be connecting the front 2 in parallel, the back 2 in parallel, and then both sets in parallel, so that I have a run off the roof, probably in the neighborhood of about 24 amps if it's really working. And then they will be combined into this 8-wire gauge cable, which will take me down through the flue. This is a 20-footer. I'll take it down to the flue and then over to the charge controller. In my charge controller board, the flow will look like the following. What I'm going to do is have first a on-off switch. This is this one here. That will switch the circuit on and off if I wanted to isolate the panels. And this is kind of nice because it comes with all of the extra little items you need for this. Next thing will happen is it's going to hit a 30 amp breaker. The solar system shouldn't provide anywhere near 30 amps of current, so this will trip if that does happen for protection purposes, but I didn't want to use it as an on-off switch because breakers really aren't designed for that, so that's why there's the switch and the breaker there. And the next thing we'll do is now move into the 40 amp MPPT charge controller. This is the main here is the multi-point tracking type situation, so this gives you far about 20 to 30% more efficiency out of your panels, so we certainly don't want to waste that. And so that's we're looking forward to using that one. And then this is the other aspect, the Bluetooth wireless connection, so that I can control the charge controller from my phone, and I don't have to crawl around doing that or sit and push buttons and so on. I can sit in my own comfort and do that. So it'll also give me data as well of how things are going. On the other side of the charge controller now, we have the cables coming out to go to the batteries. So this is a slightly higher breaker. It's a 40 ampere that will be sitting there doing that. These are all on the positive side, of course. The negative wires will go straight through. Then I have another disconnect switch coming up here that will turn the connection for this off from the battery, and so these will be ones that I will use fairly regularly. and then we're at our battery. And these are 6 volts deep cycle RV batteries, two 6 volters in series. And then the final part of this was, of course, to put the inverter in. This is a 1,000-watt inverter that'll be mounted in one of the storage bays, which will give me the ability to run some high current appliances for a short period of time. Anyhow, thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel, or give it a like at least, and I'll certainly try to address any comments as soon as I get them. Thanks for watching. See you down the road.